Yes, welcome back ladies and gentlemen, tankers of Blitz Universe to the channel. We'll be taking a look at the top 5 collector tanks in World of Tanks Blitz currently. Because in update 5.5, which was ages ago when it comes to games actually, the tech tree was simplified. Tanks that were not popular were removed from the tech tree, tanks that were hard to play were removed from the tech tree. And some really quirky and unique tanks were removed from the tech tree as well. All to enhance the new player gaming experience. Get more people to play the game, while at the same time slightly frustrating and annoying veteran players because some of these tanks were actually pretty darn good and funky to play. And we're looking at Thunderstruck 2015 here in the Panzer Selbstfahrerfette 4C, also known as the Death Toaster, because of the shape that this tank has. It is a chassis with a big gun mounted on top. In real life it had foldable sides. In World of Tanks Blitz and PC it's just a big box. And when Wargaming removed this one from the tech tree, they let it keep its big top gun. It had a really good gun to begin with. It had a choice of 2 somewhat top guns. This one with insane penetration at tier 5. And when I say insane, I really mean insane. I mean, who needs 194 of base pen on your regular ammo? And then if you swap out the APCR, you get 237. Who needs that? It's bonkers. Even in the tier 6 battle, if you're bottom tier, that's quite good on your APCR and even on your AP. You don't really need that. It had 2 types of guns, as said. This gun, the really big penetration one, and it had an 8.8mm gun as well. And when the tank was originally in the game, the 8.8 gun was actually the better one. And as I'm saying this, there will be people who say, well, Martin, this one's an 8.8 as well. Yeah, this is an 88 Flak 41, and the other one was the Flak 36-37, I think. But that one had a wider gun arc. This one, the Flak 41, Flugzeugabwehrkanone 41, that one has a very small gun arc. And when I say very small, I really mean very small. It has only got 5 degrees to the left and 5 degrees to the right. That means that basically you have to turn the whole freaking tank around to shoot people. The other gun, the 36-37 Flugzeugabwehrkanone, that one had like, I don't know, what was it, 30 or so, 40 or so. At least that was a lot better. But this tank has no armor whatsoever, because it is a chassis with a gun slapped on top and some thinly armored, quote unquote, armored plates. These plates would only stop rifle shots in real life, shrapnel, fragments from grenades, stuff like that, maybe rocks and pebbles, but it wouldn't really do anything when it came to real armor piercing round, let alone HE shells. This was just a driving box with a gun in it, and that's all she wrote. In the meantime, Thunderstruck is getting 7 kills, as you can see. He is hoping to get 7 kills. Can he get 7? Yes, he gets 7 kills for another 3 damage. Lovely stuff. 7 kills for the Death Toaster. This one was removed, but it was a fun one. This one was removed as well from the tech tree, the Churchill gun carrier, also known as the Churchill game carrier. You can see I've already started at 4 minutes 30 seconds left of the game, and the reason for that is that this tank is so freaking slow. Talking about boxes with guns sticking out of it, this is not a chassis with a gun slapped on top. This is a Churchill chassis with a box slapped on top and then a gun sticking out of the front. That's basically it. Talking about small gun arcs, this one has quite a small gun arc as well. Also 5 degrees to the left and 5 degrees to the right. But it has great gun depression. And when you mount the gun, this is a ordnance quick-firing 32-pounder AT gun. The Death Toaster had insane penetration for tier 5. This is a tier 6 tank destroyer. This tank has 214 base pen on its regular ammo, and when you swap out the armor piercing discarding Sabot Mark II-T, you get 246. This will practically churn through everything. Everything you will be throwing at this tank, you can penetrate it. It really does. The biggest problem, obviously, is the fact that the gun arc is very small. It is slow because it's a Churchill, and you will meet tanks like this, the SU-100Y, and that tank will just eat you up like butter, because that has a Premo round that does more damage while doing less penetration, and you do more penetration than you do damage on your Premo rounds, but your armor is, well, it isn't really there, so to speak. That said, the tank has been buffed, so the casemate is now on its front, a whopping 130 mils thick, but it's only flat plate, so you have to use the gun oppression, and if you use the gun oppression you can get it up to 135. So you gain 5 by using the gun oppression. Luckily the SU-100Y decides to go there, and nobody knows why, but I am Timf from the Viper clan manages to shoot the guy. He's done 2,131 damage already, which shows that the tank is capable of dealing damage, and that is quite good indeed. And he's capping the base now, capping base B, and then the Jagdpanther is thinking, I'm just gonna roll forward because I'm a Jagdpanther and I shoot Jagd. I'm gonna hunt. Yeah, but you're facing 2 big gun tank destroyers, so that's all she wrote. Bye bye Jagdpanther, back to garage. Thank you very much, I am Tim. This was another mastery game. Oh, but Martin, why aren't you showing all the team result screens? Well, the video would be like over 20 minutes long, and it's already nearly 20 minutes, so let's move on towards the next tank. This is Jigoom 21 from the 1UPS clan. And he's driving the M4A3E2, which is quite a long name, so we're going to stay with Jumbo. Jumbo was not a regular name from World War II. Was probably just put into one of the history books, and then it stuck with the modeling scene and also with the auto tank scene. And this Lycan and the Tiger P are new players, and they have no clue what to do whatsoever on mine, so they just roll on the slope and sit up there and then try to shoot a tank which is behind a rock. But Jigoom is he's feeling just fine. He's feeling fine and dandy. He repairs his modules, and he's just gonna sit here because the M4A3E2, also known as Jumbo, which I will be using from now on for abbreviation's sake. And then in real life, the Jumbo was made to attack enemy fortifications. Urban myth and internet myth has it that this tank was devised to counter the Tigers, and the Americans were in fear of facing the Tiger, etc., etc. That's not the case. This was an assault tank, and 9 out of 10 times those assault tanks, they weren't made to assault enemy tanks. In fact, the US Army had a doctrine of not attacking enemy tanks. They made tank destroyers for that specific role. And same goes for the Sturmgeschütz the Germans had. That tank was originally not designed to counter enemy tanks. It was a assault gun which was designed to attack field fortifications. Hence it had a howitzer gun. The E2, getting back to that tank, was made to counter enemy fortifications, and thus it had to be able to withstand a lot of enemy shooting, and it was completely buffed and souped up and had additional armor on the front plate, on the transmission that was beefed up. It had extra armor on the left and the right side of the hull. It had a redesigned turret with a redesigned mounted really thickly, and that was all slapped onto the chassis of a regular M4A3. Because that had a Ford GAA engine, and that Ford GAA engine had better torque and horsepower, etc. compared to the radial right engines used in the M4 and the M4A1. All that weight slowed down the tank fairly considerably. And all that weight was then added to by some of the crew, and they slapped a lot of sandbags on top of the tank. And that's a regular Easy 8 over there. And these two tanks, back in the days of 5.5, were in the tech tree, and they were the two tanks you would have to use to get to the E20. And Wargaming in all their wisdom decided, and I can understand why they did it, they decided to add the Easy 8, or keep the Easy 8 in the tech tree line and not keep the E2. Why is that? Because the E2 led to nothing but the T20, and you could get to the E20 as well by driving the Easy 8. And if you would then drive the Easy 8, that one fits the line a little bit more. So the change is understandable. But that said, this was a really good tank. I wouldn't have minded if this one had stayed in the tech tree or maybe made into a somewhat premium. I can actually see Wargaming, as they have been doing with the AMX 40, as they have been doing with some of the other collector tanks that were first in the tech tree. I've heard stories that the DW2 is being released as a tank for money, or maybe for gold. So yeah, I can see Wargaming trying to do this one as well, the M4A3E2, aka Sherman Jumbo. This tank we're looking at now, and that's not a P43, nor is it the ass of the M6 in front of us. This is the KV-13, and this is an odd duckling. This is a really odd tank. And that's the case for both the real-life KV-13 and the in-game KV-13. Because this tank was intended to be a universal tank. Much like the Centurion series in the British Army, that series replaced the infantry and cruiser versions, bringing the best of both worlds together. The Soviets were looking at replacing the production of T-34 medium tanks and the KV-1 heavy tanks because they were noticing that the mobility of T-34 medium tanks was preferred over the real raw protection of the KV-1 heavy tanks, and they decided to, or tried to bring the best of both worlds together. Have a tank with good mobility, yet protection levels of a heavy tank, and then make it possible to maybe add some firepower to the whole lot as well. So this would be the universal Soviet tank. They made a prototype of the tank, but there was mechanical reliability issues. They needed to strengthen the armor, they had to give it a new turret, etc., and they made 2 modified prototypes. But yeah, the tank was only capable of fitting a 76mm gun. And the T-34 was able to mount an 85mm gun, so you would have an inferior tank basically, especially when the KV series was changed into the IS-1, and that tank was capable of mounting a 122mm gun, so why would you want to use a subpar and inferior medium tank? That's not... it just doesn't work. Same goes, or same went basically, for the KV-13 in-game. This tank led to nothing. And Wargaming could have changed it, made a lot of object versions for World of Tanks Blitz and add these in the game and just make up a lot of tanks basically. But they decided not to do that because the KV-13 asset didn't lead to anything basically. You could go to the IS series and then you would go towards the IS-7, or you could go down the KV line and keep doing that tank. It was a Tier 7 tank that was just smack in the middle of the tech tree with basically nowhere to go, while this AT was crawling up the hill and is very lucky to not have died already.
A few moments later.
Then there happened really nothing in the game. It was just a little bit of driving around right through the ship. And I can understand why Wargaming changed this tank into a collector's tank, why they removed it from the tech tree, because as said, it's an odd tank and it doesn't add anything into the game, and you can't really use it to grind towards any tier 10. It's just it's a bit of an orphan tank, so to speak. You could use it, you could play it, it works, but there's nothing that this tank really can do that a T-43 or a T-34-85 or an IS can't do. So yeah, why use it? You could do a little bit of side scraping in it and a little bouncing with the front, but other than that, it was removed. It was the highest tiered collectible tank in the game. I think you could sell it for, what was it, 1,500 gold? And we're looking here at November Rain 77, getting an ace as well. And I got that replay from the Water Inspector website, and then we're going to hop on towards the next one, and the latest one, which is not a KV-2 we're facing at. These are the two adversaries for Tier 6 heavy tanks in the same tech tree, basically, in World of Tanks Blitz. You have the KV-1S, obviously, but we're now looking at a T-150 versus a KV-2. And the KV-2 stayed in the game, and the T-150 did not. Well, the T-150 is still in the game, but it did not stay in the tech tree. It was removed. It was turned into a collectible. And the reason for that, and Wargaming have been clear about it, the reason for leaving the KV-2 as a tier 6 tank was the fact that that tank was a fan favorite. They decided not to add the more logical and sensible choice of the T150 to the Tech 3, but add that very big and derpy KV-2, which is a fun tank if it has the big gun. The KV-2 on the left had the pencil. What's it? A 105, I think. Not even sure. But in my opinion, the T150 would be a more logical choice, a more sensible choice in the game. And Bonnie Chris is driving a tanky in a very historical camouflage, and he bounces on the tracks of a leopard, which is pretty annoying. But back to the T150, this is basically a KV-1 with some more armor, a bigger engine fitted into it, because more armor means more weight, and it has a cupola on top of the turret instead of just that flat-topped KV-1 turret. And eventually, the T150 was changed a little bit, and it was approved for production as the KV-3. And the KV-3 was then added in real life, had a bigger turret, etc. It had a 177mm gun, and it was to have entered production in 1941, but that was changed due to the German invasion. And we have a Sherman Jumbo, which I featured in the video too. And you can see that Pawnee Chris has been able to drive around a little bit, and he hasn't done a lot of block damage yet. But here he goes now, because this leopard is spraying and praying, and it's bouncing. Has bounced a few shots on him. The E2, the Jumbo, is resorting to APCR already, because why not? And this AMX is driving in front of a Russian gun, and is very lucky. There is a Panzer 4G. Can we shoot him? Yeah, no, we cannot, because we do not have the gun depression. And Pawnee Chris is just somewhat driving around here. Bounces another shot, as you can see. But why would I want to have this game? Ram the heavy tank. No problem, mate. Ram the heavy tank. Or drive past the heavy tank, that's better. Why would I want to have this game, this tank in the game, rather than the KV-2? Well, I'm going to tell you. Because the KV-2 is all fun, shits and giggles. I honestly think it is. I mean, it's a big meme lols tank. Just make no mistake about that. I quite like it. But it does not work, in my opinion, in the current tech tree, because people sometimes go for the KV-2 and they think, oh, that's a really big gun, I'm gonna shoot everybody, I'm going to kill everybody because I have a big gun, I'm gonna do a lot of damage. Well, this tank is slow and lumbering and has got good armor. There he goes, the leopard bumping into the heavy tank. GG, mate, really well done. Here, get balanced. There we go. Wait a bit, reload, and boom. Thank you very much. The KV-2 has that big gun. And that big gun means that people will just start driving forward, and then they have to wait for really long to aim. And you have to wait on this gun for quite some time, on the T150. But the T150 plays like the KV-3, and the KV-3 plays then like the KV-4, which is a bit of an unloved tank. And the KV-4 somewhat plays like the ST. While the ST can go hull down, it is also a side-scraping tank. So all these tanks, they match up, while the KV-2 gets blown up by the Jumbo. And that leads to a loss, which is annoying, because Pawnee Chris did really well. But I think this tank would have been better off in the tech tree, as opposed to the KV-2. But these are the top 5, I think, collector tanks. The 5 tanks that Wargaming could have left in the tech tree and not just remove. Leave your thoughts down below. What do you think? T150 or KV-2? GG. Catch you on the next one. Cheers. Happy tanking.